We're not happy with Putin. I'm not happy with Putin. I can tell you that much right now, because he's killing a lot of people. And a lot of them are his soldiers and their soldiers, mostly. And it's now up to 7,000 a week.
President Trump expressing his frustrations with Russian President Vladimir Putin this week. Mr. Trump reportedly is thinking about giving Ukraine more aid for the first time since he took office back in January. It comes as Russia has ramped up deadly drone attacks in recent days. For more on this, let's bring in Dr. Rebecca Grant, senior fellow at the Lexington Institute. It does sound, Dr. Grant, like the president is extremely upset with Vladimir Putin.
Yes, he is. President Trump hoped to be at a ceasefire in Ukraine by now, but instead we see Putin lashing out with these horrible massed drone and missile attacks. So what I see, John, is I think that President Trump, he's fixed NATO, he's got that going well, and now Trump is ready to play hardball with Russia. And Trump has a lot of options, and if I were Putin, I would watch out.
Well, what are some of those options? I mean, we could put more sanctions on their oil production, but that brings its own set of problems, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And so I think the number one requirement here is air defense. Without a strong air defense over Ukraine, the negotiating position collapses. So I think that when President Trump talks about this next week, we will hear more about providing air defenses, probably both through the U.S. and through NATO partners. On the sanctions, that bill that Lindsey Graham talks about is ready to go. It's a 500% tariff on some of Russia's biggest customers, and it is moving its way along. So Trump has quite a lot up his sleeve at this point to deal with a recalcitrant and Putin who just has a taste for war.
Yeah, the Ukrainians have just done an incredible job in fighting off the attacks of this much bigger and better funded ally. I think of the attacks on those bombers, the drone attacks on the Russian bombers that were more than 1,000 miles away from the Ukrainian border a few weeks ago. But is there more that the president could or should do? I'm talking about President Trump now. Could or should do to help the Ukrainians out?
Well, there is always more. I think the tactical situation is Ukraine is holding Russia pretty well on the ground. The real pressure is these massed drone attacks, which are so much bigger than anything that we've seen. They're going against civilian targets. It's typically a bunch of Iranian-made drones, some decoys, and then 10 or 20 really difficult, either hypersonic or cruise or ballistic missiles scattered in there. And that is directly to pressure the NATO allies who are providing air defenses. So I'd really like to see President Trump greenlight another drawdown to provide Patriot missiles, more of the Norwegian U.S. NASAMS. They've got a 94% success rate. And hey, you know, the European partners and others are doing really well. Australia has sent its wedge-tail plane there to help track aerial threats. But we've just got to have all hands in on air defense for Ukraine to counter Putin and make sure he can't reach any political objectives through these just horrible attacks on civilian areas.
Well, is that his new strategy? Just bombard the civilians of Ukraine and try to, cower them into submission?
It seems to be, and a lot of this, of course, is reaction to NATO's 5% pledge, to the strength that President Trump has shown in leading NATO to a larger resolve to defend against Russia. So a lot of this is Putin reacting and acting out. He can't make the gains on the ground as fast as he wants, and he's got a pretty unlimited supply of missiles. That's why defeating Putin in this summer air battle over Ukraine is of the highest importance. And so I want to see from the U.S., Germany, the others, more Patriot missiles going down to Ukraine to really button up that air defense. They do a great job with it, but they need to be supported and hold strong to get through this very difficult period.
President Trump has long leaned on the Europeans, the NATO allies in Europe, to do more to support Ukraine. You think that's finally happening now?
Yes, I think it is. They're doing a good job. And then what we really need to see is increased U.S. arms production, NATO and NATO partners purchasing weapons for their own defense, and then, of course, to send to Ukraine as well. And hey, here in Washington, we got to make sure we clean up the arms export bureaucracy and actually get these weapons that are paid for off and moving to our European partners and to Ukraine. But this is the time we got to hold and contain Russia at this point, and we've got to push Putin back with this air battle. So this is not a tactic he can try anyplace else against NATO.
Yeah. Dr. Rebecca Grant, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.